Welcome to the Market Insight Forums. I am Dr. Ping Yi, your host and a specialist in public policy economics. Today, we are going to track a particularly pressing issue that begins to make headlines and emptying wallets across the country, the 2024 egg price crisis. If you have been to a grocery store recently, you have felt the sticker shock. Consumers are seeing their grocery bills skyrocket. Producers are struggling to stay afloat, and now the government is considering dramatic intervention. But what's really happening in this market, and what should we do about it? I'm joined today by 3 brilliant minds who help us understand this complex situation. To my left, Dr. Yaya,
Hi everyone.
our microeconomic theory specialist. Next, Dr. Angeline,
Hello,
who
everyone.
specializes in empirical economics, and Dr. Shifa, our market efficiency expert.
Hi everyone.
I will also be weighing in later as a policy economics. Let's start with the basics. Dr. Yaya, what is the fundamental economics event we are seeing?
Thank you, Dr. Pini, for the warm welcome and also for the question. We will start now. The economic narrative begins with the two simultaneous shocks to the egg production system. In early 2024, chicken feed prices rose by approximately 30%, while transportation and logistic costs increased by 25%. In macroeconomic terms, this represents a classic increase in production costs. Every egg that comes to market now costs more to produce. Now, let me walk you through what our model predicts should happen. Point 1. When production costs increase, producers face a difficult choice. At any given market price, it's now less profitable to supply eggs. Some producers might cut back on production. Others might exit the market entirely if their costs exceed what they can reasonably charge. This collective reduction in willingness to supply at each price level causes what we call a leftward shift in the supply curve. If you will look at our first visualization, you will see exactly this phenomenon. We start at our initial equilibrium, S0, where the supply meets demand. The cost shocks pushes that supply curve left to S1. Immediately, the oil price P0, we now have a shortage. Consumers want more eggs than producers are willing to supply. And that shortage triggers the market's adjustment mechanism. Consumers compete for the limited eggs, bidding prices upward until we reach new equilibrium at P1. Notice two things about this new equilibrium. The price is significantly higher, and the quantity of eggs traded is lower. This is the law of demand and supply in its most basic but powerful form.
But the magnitude of the price increase depends on something crucial, isn't it?
Absolutely. It depends on the price elasticity of demand. Eggs, particularly in cultures where they are a dietary staple, tend to have inelastic demand. People need their eggs. They are not really easily substituted away by other products in the short term. When demand is inelastic, a reduction in supply leads to a disproportionately large price increase, and consumers bear the burn of the cost shock.
Dr. Yaya, and what about the producers? They are getting higher price. Doesn't that help them?
Here's the painful irony. While market prices rise, production costs have risen even more dramatically. Many producers are actually seeing their profit margins shrink despite their higher prices. Some producers, particularly smaller, less efficient operations, find that their average variable costs now exceed the market price. According to the theory of the firm, when that happens, the rational decision is to shut down operations entirely. So the supply reduction becomes self-reinforcing.
So, theory gives us a clear vision. Higher cost leads to reduced supply, which leads to higher price and lower quantity, which consumer bearing most of the burden. Dr. Angeline, does the real world conform this rather bleak prediction?
First, I could say the theory was wrong, Dr. Peggy, but the data tells a story that's almost textbook perfect. Let me walk you through what we're actually seeing. First, the price trajectory. Between January and April of this year, the average price of the standard chicken egg in Malaysia increased from 45 cents to 65 cents. That's a 44% increase in just 4 months. And if you overlay that price increase with the feed cost data, you can see that they're actually moving in near perfect synchronization. The correlation coefficient is 0.92, which is extraordinarily strong.
So producers are passing on their cost increase almost directly to consumers, isn't it?
Exactly. Now, what about the quantity? Domestic egg production fell by approximately 50% during that same period. Not all of that is producers shutting down. Some is voluntary reduction, and some is disease outbreaks exacerbated by cost-cutting on biosecurity. But the net effect is exactly what Dr. Yaya's model predicted, supply down by about 50%. But here's where it gets particularly interesting. We conducted a survey of 2,000 households across income brackets. Low-income households, which are those earning less than 3,000 ringgit per month, reduced their egg consumption by an average of 25%. That's a significant protein being cut from their diets. Meanwhile, high-income households, which are those earning over 10,000 ringgits per month, reduced their consumption by only 8%.
Wow, that's a dramatic disparity.
It is. It demonstrates differences in income elasticity, but also speaks to a deeper equity issue. The burden of this price shock is falling disproportionately on those least able to bear it. For wealthy families, eggs are a small part of their food budget, but for poor families, they're a crucial protein source that's becoming more unaffordable.
And what about the producers you mentioned? The ones theoretically shut down?
So we surveyed of about 150 small to medium pig farms, and their average profit margin shrank from 12% to just 3% during this period. Approximately 5% have exited the market entirely. That's about 30 of the farms we tracked have stopped their egg production. Most cited feed costs as the primary reason.
So the market is booming and just as theory predicts, painfully but efficiently.
Yeah, there's one more crucial data point. By analyzing historical consumption and price data, we have calculated that the price elasticity of demand for eggs in Malaysia is approximately minus 0.3. That confirms Dr. Yaya's earlier point. Demand is indeed inelastic. And here is what that means in practical terms. Despite consuming fewer eggs, consumers as a whole are actually spending more money on their eggs. Total expenditure increased by about 80%, even as quantity consumed fell around 15%.
Alright, so let me summarize what we know so far. Production costs rose dramatically, supply decreased, but the price increased sharply. Low-income households are cutting down consumption dramatically while still spending more of their limited income. Producers are struggling, some are failing. The market is working as economic theories says it should, but the outcomes are socially painful. Which brings us to the policy question, should we intervene? Alright, so the data reveals a clearly equity and social welfare issue. When a staple protein becomes unaffordable for a significant population, it's a problem beyond economics. Targeted government intervention can correct this, is it?
I must challenge that this isn't market failure, it's the market signaling genuine scarcity through higher prices and telling us to use resources wisely.
But using wisely shouldn't mean children lacking adequate protein.
Then address that specifically without distorting the entire market. Let's examine your main proposals, import and subsidies. Both have severe consequences.
By importing eggs, increase total supply, shifting the supply curve forward, price fall, providing immediate consumer relief.
At what cost? It exports agricultural jobs, creates foreign dependency, and stifles the domestic market and need to adjust and innovate. Higher prices are a necessary signal for efficiency.
Even now, relief now. Option 2, production subsidies. By lowering input costs like feed, we see supply private while supporting domestic producers is a win-win situation.
No, Dr. Pini, it's a win-lose situation. Taxpayer fund inefficient producer, so the economy misallocates resources which consumer ultimately pay through taxes and are encouraged to overconsume a no-scarce resource. Global data shows that subsidies create dependency and distortion, often benefiting larger players. Instead, let market prices reflect true scarcity, but provide direct, targeted cash transfers to low-income households. They choose how to spend it, and the market clears efficiently. Producers get correct signals, and the vulnerable are helped, and no long-term distortion are created.
That's administratively massive. Identify households, preventing fraud, dispersing quickly.
We have the technology as seen during COVID. The administrative cost is likely less than the economic cost of market distortion.
Sorry to interrupt, but we can see it from another angle. Market adjustment involves substitution to alternatives, but this takes time, information, and sometimes cultural adaptation. Our survey shows substitution happening in high-income households, but low-income households are mostly just eating less protein overall.
Exactly. Your approach is theoretically elegant, but it knows that people need affordable food now.
And your approach risks temporarily creating permanent problems. We've seen subsidies become entrenched, industries uncompetitive, and with costs lasting decades.
Let me offer a middle ground. Historically, price controls and universal subsidies often lead to black markets, quality drops, and benefit middlemen the most.
And I think the core trade-off is between allocative efficiency and equality. The goal is balancing to minimize the total welfare loss.
So, in practice, perhaps a temporary targeted subsidy for small producers with a sunset clause coupled with agricultural R&D investment for long-term efficiency.
So if we must intervene, make it time-bound and transparent with a clear exit strategy. Ideally, a paired with direct cash transfers. Help people weather the storm without blocking the price signals to the indicate scarcity. Comparing the welfare implications side by side, the free market maximizes total surplus but hurts the low-income consumers the most. Imports help consumers but hurt the producers. Subsidies help both but create big weight loss. Targeted transfers protect the vulnerable while also preserving the market signals.
Well, there's no option that is perfect, so each involves trade-off, and that is the economic policy.
Exactly. Today's discussion is a perfect case study in applied microeconomics. A cost shock triggers predictable market adjustment, confirmed by data, yet creates painful real-world outcomes. The eight pieces illustrate the external policy tension between efficiency and equity. The market's balance can be efficiency but harsh. Intervention can relieve but risk long-term distortion. Three key takeaways. First, diagnose the root cause correctly. This is cost plus inflation. Second, understand elasticities. Inelastic demand means consumers bear the burden. Third, weigh all intervention costs, including long-term efficiency losses from distorting price. For policymakers, consider layered solution. Short-term, targeted relief for the vulnerable. Medium-term, support for producer innovation. For long-term, build resilience against future shocks. The goal is not to suppress market signals, but to manage their social impact while allowing them to guide efficient long-term adjustment. Thank you to my colleagues, Dr. Yaya, Dr. Anjali, and Dr. Shiva for this stimulating discussion. And to our viewers, the next time you see price rise, remember you are watching fundamental economics force at work, creating puzzles with no perfect solution. Only difficult trade-off. That's economic in action. Thank you for joining the Markets Insight Forum. See you next time.